Hello my friends, Jacob is here. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video, for pressing play, for subscribing, for sharing, for checking out other videos, for just being awesome. I appreciate it. Thank you. Today we're talking about GMOs, that is genetically modified organisms, and some crazy news that is kind of flying under the radar that we're going to talk about today. Whether you know it or not, that's what today is about. Because the big news is that gigantic company Bayer, that German company Bayer, Bayer, well, they just bought Monsanto. Monsanto has been sold. So if you think Monsanto was a monster, just wait and see what happens when you put this Goliath behind it, okay? And that only adds a little bit of spice to what we're going to be talking about today, because today, believe it or not, is even scarier than that. Yes, that's right. I'm going to tell you all about a bill that is an amendment to another bill, an agriculture bill, that on the surface looks like it's going to help the consumer out, but really, it's really more about enslavement and making sure that none of us really know what it is that we're purchasing. And it's kind of designed to make sure that these corporate Goliaths maintain their control and their stranglehold on all of us. Hiding the real meaning to this bill, I'm sure is what they wanted. But today's program will reveal the truth behind it. That's right, because we ain't lazy anymore, right? We're all waking up. We're educating ourselves. We're looking into these things. So if you don't know anything about GMOs, if you heard about it, you're going to learn about it today, and you're going to find out why it's really important, because pesticides, GMOs, all this stuff you're consuming, whether you know it or not. It's time to wake up, people. This is one of those programs that you and everybody needs to watch. It's wake up time. So let's rock and roll. Now, you have been told by, the people that make these products that GMOs are safe. And, that very well may be, and that very well may not be true at all, not even a little bit. So today we're going to discuss that. In fact, it may be the opposite of true. It may be quite dangerous because, let's be honest, no long-term studies have been done. Now, for those of you that don't know what a GMO is, it is a genetically modified organism. Okay, basically, they use some technique, and there are many of them, we're going to discuss them, to basically change or rearrange or bring about a new trait in an organism that is, beneficial to, the consumer or to the people that are genetically modifying them. Now, GMOs, this isn't a new idea. In fact, it's been around for like thousands of years. Crossbreeding is the big thing, back in the day. You basically, if you've eaten an apple, right? If you've eaten some of the apples today, it's cross-pollination. They basically take the pollen from, one, certain apple, and they put it on the female part of another certain apple, and then you get a awesome new apple, right? And that's not a big deal, because that's still kind of using nature with nature. And that's one way of genetically modifying things, crossbreeding. Now, another way, which is not as ancient, is called mutagenesis. And believe me, it is exactly what it sounds like. It's about mutations. And, when you think about mutations, you don't think about the X-Men and getting superpowers. When you think about mutations, you think about the effects of radiation. And go figure, that's exactly what they do. Basically, they irradiate these fruits, right? And they see what kind of mutations are going to come from them. So they basically just expose it to, radiation or toxic chemicals. And if you've ever eaten a not a ruby red, but a Rio red grapefruit, well, that's something that was basically filled with radiation and toxic chemicals, and it was the grapefruit was mutated, and now you're enjoying it thanks to that. Now, if you like watermelon, most of the watermelons today, they were genetically modified as well, and this is called polyploidy. Okay, I know it's a goofy name, right? Polyploidy. What they do is they add like an extra set of chromosomes or something, and they basically engineer it, and that's what you get. Once again, playing God with fruit. But once again, if it's not going to hurt anyone and it's beneficial, I say, way to go. Way to go, Frankenstein. But some of the newer techniques actually call for more pesticides and more poisons and everything else. And it's kind of like when you play God with nature, nature fights back. And then, of course, the next one is called transgenesis. And that's basically when you take the genes of one plant and or vegetable, and you basically implant those genes into another. And if you've eaten corn, corn is a big one. Transgenesis, once again, we've been eating this on a regular basis. We don't really know where it comes from. The ones that I just, pointed out, the ones that I just talked about, they're not really that scary. What is scary though is this new CRISPR system. Okay, that's the big thing. That's what everybody's talking about. Okay, it's basically it's an incredibly accurate way of turning on genes and turning off genes and really messing with the genome of certain vegetables and fruits and plants. And see, that's where it gets spooky, because when you're editing these vegetables to basically ward off pests like insects or anything else, what they're doing is they're basically creating this fruit or vegetable that produces this horrible toxin that when ingested by the insect, basically shreds up the insides. So in fact, it's poisonous to living creatures that eat it. Now, of course, once again, as I said before, the reason why a lot of people have problems with the GMOs is because these genetically modified plants and vegetables and fruits, they then need a lot of other pesticides that are thrown down to combat it, because nature fights back. So, the insects and the bugs, they become resistant to, whatever they're eating. And of course, the weeds that are, being strangled by the pesticides that are being thrown down, well, they become like super weeds and even harder to destroy. But, I want to point something out, because, I have Crohn's disease and I have ankylosing spondylitis. And, we all have the genes for this. We all have the, we all basically can have a certain disease or a horrible thing turned on through some kind of environmental change. Like with my Crohn's, that little thing was like turned on. And so now I ended up becoming very, very sick from it. So when we turn on these genes in plants and animals, the question is, what happens to those who are eating it, right? And shouldn't we know about this? Shouldn't we know? I mean, we're buying the food and we're consuming it, but shouldn't we know that there may be some kind of a risk? They, of course, say no, but there are a lot of smart people that say it's bad news, and And I got some of the reasons right here. According to Natural Savvy, okay, these are the top 10 reasons why we should avoid them. First of all, Monsanto, DuPont, and Dow, they all tell you that the products are safe, but long-term studies on human consumption never been done, okay? So number 2, health risks. Known health risks. What do we know, okay? What we do know is that when genetically modified organisms happen, these genes are forced to express certain traits, including these pesticides I was talking about, right? And to do this, they turn on these genes. Now, what happens is it releases these horrible allergens. And that's why we start seeing more and more people having these horrible food allergies and being allergic to this and soy and peanut butter and this. And that's why I can't bring any cookies in to my little Ethan's classroom because everybody's allergic to something. Now, when I was a kid, and when most of you were kids, do you remember everybody having asthma? Do you remember everybody carrying an inhaler? No, it was like that one kid, that one kid, and he was sick and everybody else was healthy. But now it's like everybody walks around with an inhaler. Everybody has horrible allergies. And why is that? Well, we're consuming food that may be linked to that. Okay, number 3, heavy use of toxic pesticides and chemicals. By design, genetically modified seeds require these pesticides. They require them, not to mention all the runoff that goes into the water, which in turn then kills all the fish. But safe, right? Nothing to worry about. Number 4, pesticides and digestive health. The main function of herbicides and pesticides is to kill unwanted plants and insects. Now we have this great bacteria in our belly, that lines our intestines and everything else. Well, guess what? It also tends to kill off that great gut bacteria that keeps us, healthy. Number 5, big one, cancer. Cancer. Cancer's on the rise. More cancer now than before. And both pesticides and GMOs have been connected with an increased risk of cancer. Now they'll say things like, well, bacon's linked to cancer and we eat that. And as long as we don't eat a lot, right? But the problem is we're eating the same fruits and vegetables every single day of the week, okay? We're not eating bacon every day of the week, are we? Moving on. Number 6, the environmental impact. I told you about the runoff of the pesticides. Not good. I don't even know if I can pronounce this right, but it's called glyphosate, okay? It's marketed by Monsanto, and this thing is a nightmare. And it's in basically all their Roundup. And in effect, it's an antibiotic, okay? So it destroys the quality of the soil, not to mention killing fish and everything in its wake. Cross-pollination between GMO and non-GMO crops is common as well, and that can basically destroy natural plant varieties. So, when they're doing this stuff, we're killing life in the process. Of course, the superbugs that I told you about, these superbugs, resistant weeds, making it harder to, take care of things, your farm and everything else. And this is the one that I wanted to talk about. Number 8, because this is really devious. Real devious. Farmers, they're like the bread and butter. Really, like I always wanted to be on a farm, but short of growing my tomatoes and cucumbers, it's not my thing. But the farmers, those that we depend on, okay? They've been tricked, man. They've been tricked into buying these seeds, right? Well, guess what? These seeds are patented. So they can't then, harvest the seeds from what's been planted and then replant them. That's why Monsanto and all these companies are suing these American farmers, and not just American farmers, but Indian farmers and everything else. There's a reason why a majority of countries don't allow these pesticides and don't allow GMOs. There's a reason for it. We, on the other hand, well, we're kind of, the place that allows everything, because we're just dumb Americans, right? Keep watching reality TV. So the patent issue, it's a big deal. Farmers, we're talking even like if a plant, the seed is thrown into the air and it lands and it grows, that's owned by, the company that sold the seed. and then they sue the farmer in the meantime. Netflix just did a cool movie on this. I mean, it was an all right movie. It wasn't great. I got through like half of it, but there's a great scene. Check it out.
Look, in the last 20 years, Clinestra has sued more than 800 family farms over patent infringement. They've got the money and the muscle to win.
How do you patent life? I mean, honestly.
It's hard to wrap your head around, I know. But in the early 80s, the courts ruled living organisms that have been genetically altered were eligible for patent protection.
I mean, that's crazy.
Crazy as it may be, I advise a settlement. It seems to me to be the most financially sound solution.
And what would that mean?
They would pay you a small sum in order to avoid trial, and in return you agree to use their seeds moving forward and pay them an annual percentage.
Like the hell if I do that. In fact, I want to countersue them for harassment. These damn GMO cops come to my home before dawn snooping. They even got my neighbors spying for them. They give them a special 800 number to call if they see anyone reusing seeds.
I'm sorry.
I'll never use their monster seeds. I worked too hard to keep my organic certification all these years. And this is America. And I deserve my constitutional freedoms.
Okay, so, look, what would you like to do?
They can believe me all they want, but I ain't giving in.
Now the big thing, which is pretty spooky. I mean, these guys are protected. They can't even be sued, and even if the state, they call it the Monsanto Protection Act. The U.S. government passed a bill. It's nicknamed that. In essence, it grants biotech companies like Monsanto to have immunity from the courts. I mean, really? Did you know that? I didn't know that until I researched it. Immunity from the courts. But not just that, right? Even if a judge determines that it's unlawful to plant GMO plants on a farm, guess what? Companies have to do it anyway. They can do it anyway. Doesn't matter. Courts don't matter. No rules apply. Then, of course, there is the prolific presence. Whether you know it or not, you're eating this stuff, people. You're eating it on a regular basis. And what are you going to do about it? Nothing. And now, finally, this is what the video is really about, okay? Because I stumbled upon this. It was almost like it was divinely inspired. What isn't today, right? Everything's inspired, and inspiration, that spark. Follow after it. Follow after it. It leads to great things. And I found out that on July 29th, okay, President Barack Obama, he signed a bill amending the Agricultural Marketing Act of 1946. Which basically has to do with labeling, right? Okay, so here's the deal. They make it sound like they're doing it on behalf of the consumer. They make it sound like, okay, we're going to do this for all of you. We're going to do it for all the consumers. We're going to make sure that these companies, they label all of their products. Has to be labeled, okay? But what they're not telling you is, is the crazy part, right? Listen to this. You know how they're going to be labeled? It's not going to say just GMO on it, because that would be simple. Just GMO, very simple, little stamp, boom. Doesn't cost much. They say it'll increase costs, which is a bunch of baloney. GMO, stamp it. That's it. Add to the template. No, now it's going to be a digital link. Those little things that you scan your phone on? Little things, looks like a little weird little box, right? I still don't know what they're called. I think they're called like QR codes or something. So basically all of these GMO products are going to now have to have these codes, okay? Now why would they do this? Let me tell you why, okay? Because see, in Vermont, they just passed a law where basically all of the genetically modified foods had to be labeled, okay? Like labeled. And this is kind of the government's way of heading off that path. So they don't get this legislation passed with all these states. They want to make sure that the less affluent people, most people, as they're walking down the shopping aisle, I mean, how many people are, look, I got 4 kids, right? I don't have a lot of time. You think I'm going to start bringing my phone, I'm going to be scanning things to find out if it has GMO or not? Because they know people aren't going to do that. Because they know that we're apathetic. And why are we apathetic? Because we've been dumbed down for how many years? The last video I did was on Zika. If you didn't see it, check it out. And I got a lot of great response from it. A lot of people told me, about the patent, the Rockefeller patent. And also about, that the Gates, Bill Gates, their foundation, they're the ones behind the genetically modified mosquitoes, which everyone has basically said has caused this epidemic to begin with. Whether it was intentional or not is up for discussion. But there's a reason that every single news organization is making a big deal out of this. They're saying, DEET, you got to put that on your skin, DEET. It's poisonous. It's horrible. Speaking of apathy, I saw a video. I can't remember the name of it. I'd love to credit this. I'll find the link and I'll put it down. But, it was a chemist who said, look, we're eating all these pesticides. You put DEET on your skin, it becomes a binary compound which inhibits neurons. Basically, your neurons from firing. So it makes you lazy and apathetic and it makes it's hard to concentrate. And I wonder why ADD is on the rise, right? Do you remember that too when you were a kid? There was one hyper kid, one crazy, he bounced off the walls like I bounced off the walls. You don't have ADD, but today, all these kids, medicated, everything. It's just, it's a real shame. And we're really behind the 8 ball when it comes to understanding what's happening right before our eyes. We need to educate ourselves. And we need to, stand up for our rights. And I don't want a scannable barcode. If there's some Frankenstein food on the aisle that I'm shopping on, I want to know. I don't want to have to break out my iPhone. And what happens if there's no Wi-Fi, Then I got to use data. Come on now, people. GMOs, whether they're a good thing or a bad thing, you're going to have to look that up and find that out. But this law that was just passed, devious, totally devious, corrupt to the very core. All they had to do was just basically do the right thing. Nobody seems to be doing the right thing today. How many people today do you know are doing the right thing? We need to start doing the right thing. We need to start becoming that light so that other people see this light shining within us. They see that love and that compassion and that unity, and they too raise that light themselves. Because that's the only way things are going to get better. There's a lot coming at us today, people. From all ends, from outer space, from right here at home, and in our supermarket aisle. It's time for us to inform ourselves. It's time for us to look into these things a little bit more. Today, spend a little time learning about GMO, learning about the foods that you eat, learning about the pesticides, and learning about the repellents that you're putting on your skin and your children's skin and the food that we're feeding them. Man, it's like the blinders came off. And now I just feel like I gotta tell everybody about it, I love you all. I'm so very grateful that you took the time to listen today. I want to thank you for commenting and for liking and for sharing and for subscribing. I really appreciate it. Do me a favor, check out the other videos. And you know what? I don't ever talk about this. I have mentioned it in the video in the past or two, but I do have an awesome novel. It's called The Calling. There'll be a link in it, and it's a life-changing book. Do me a favor, if you're going to get it on Amazon. And if you like to read, check out The Calling. There is more to it than meets the eye. That much is certain. And it is destined to make great changes once it catches fire. And I hope this want for wisdom and understanding and want for a better life for your children and for you and for others in the world, I hope this want for love and for hope and for peace catches fire too. And I will talk to you next week, same time, same channel. Talk to you soon.